welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren and this is Putting Them First. If you are new to this channel or if you're just hopping on for this video, I'm a first grade teacher, and today will be part 2 of my student teaching series. This will be the rest of the Q&A, the questions that you guys sent in from Instagram. So when I filmed the answers to the questions, it was like a 45-minute clip of just me answering questions. So there's no way I could do it all at once. So this will be the rest of the questions. Sorry to keep you waiting. Hopefully these videos will go up pretty close to each other so that you're able to get all of your questions answered. And again, I'm so happy to have you here. And if you are just getting into your student teaching, congratulations. If you're a mentor teacher, best of luck with having another teacher in your room. Thank you for letting us share your space. If you're thinking about teaching one day, you definitely should, and this video might be helpful for you. But everyone else, I'm happy to have you here as well. If you have any questions that didn't get answered, leave them in the comments down below and I will do my best to answer them as always. But for now, let's get back into those questions. Next question, lunches to pack. This is a fun one. I mostly packed not Lunchables, what are the words? Lean cuisines. I know that's not very good for you. They're super processed and have a bunch of junky ingredients, but that's really what I would pack. If not, it just started pouring outside. Oh, buddy. Oh, well, I guess I won't have to wash my car. Anyways, if I didn't pack a lean cuisine, I would pack just leftovers, or I saw a lot of teachers would do that, or I would bring an adult Lunchable. I would bring crackers and lunch meat and some cheese and maybe an apple with peanut butter. That was one of my favorite lunches. I would have some crackers, some sliced cheese, some pepperonis, and then an apple with peanut butter almost every day for a while. That was all I ate. Other than that, another person asked me, actually there were a few different ways to frame this question, but essentially, were you able to work or did you work at all during your student teaching? Yes. And then the other follow-up question to that was, did I do VIP Kid during my student teaching? Yes, again. So, I know that there were other people in my program who did more I guess you would call them traditional jobs during student teaching. So those people would do mostly bartending or serving or hostessing. Hosting if they were a guy, but we only had 2 guys and they didn't do that. But anyways, those were the kind of jobs that people had. And it's just hard because, especially if your student teaching is structured similarly, you are busy until around 3:30, but some days it might be 4, some days it might be 2:30, whenever your teacher leaves, you leave. So you never really know what time of the day you're gonna be done. And you also are waking up super early because it's elementary school. So I know I would have had to wake up around 6 anyways to get ready. So to answer the question fully, I did VIP Kid all through my student teaching. It was great. I was exhausted. I had no social life, but I needed to have some form of income. So with VIP Kid, you have to have a bachelor's degree, and my student teaching took place during my master's year. So I'd already earned my bachelor's degree, and then you also have to have some sort of teaching experience, but they use any sort of coaching or mentorship as teaching experience. So I met all the requirements. I applied and ended up getting through everything, and I was able to do, I think I did 2 hours of classes before I went to school every morning. So if you do the math on that one, I was waking up with the roosters. I think I taught, maybe it was 3 classes. I think I did 3 classes, which is an hour and a half. So I started at 4:30 and I finished at 6, and then I would get ready and then I would go to student teaching. So I would only do 3 classes a day, which is $30 a day basically doing that. But then on the weekends, I would teach from 5 to 10, which is longer days. So it was enough of an income for me. Yeah, so that's what I did. Would I recommend it? Maybe. I mean, I already knew that I was going to have to get up early, so for me, it wasn't going to make sense for me to like burn the candle at both ends and stay up late doing another job that would inhibit my performance as a student teacher. And I also had all of my coursework to do, all of my master's classes that were online. So it worked well for me because I was able to work in the mornings and then do student teaching all day, and then in the afternoons I would plan if I hadn't for the next day, but like do planning things for my student teaching, and then I would do like all of my master's courses online, and then by that time I would be like eating dinner and going to bed at like 8 because I was a grandma, because I had to be up so early for VIP Kid. If you hear thunder, I'm sorry. Anyways, that's my opinion on jobs. I'm not sure about like bartending or doing any of the other stuff because I would just feel like I'd be exhausted, but you can. I know it was done, so there's that. What did I have to turn in for credit? This is a good question. So I mentioned before that a lot of my coursework had a required practice component. So I really appreciated this. It was essentially like every time we were learning something in theory, they wanted us to put it into practice. You know, it's a great way to see if you agree with the theory or if you like how it plays out in a classroom, because to read something in a textbook or in a research article is one thing, to do it in a classroom is a different thing. So anyways, what I had to turn in, I had to do, I think, 4 mentor observations. So my mentor and I would have like a pre-planning conference to talk about the lesson that I was going to teach. Even by the time like I was teaching all day, we would just like pick one of them to count as like the observation, and it would just be more formal. So we would have like a pre-conference the day before to talk about what the standards were, how I had anticipated different like areas of need, things like that. I had to actually turn in a lesson plan to her for that one. She would give feedback. She would watch the lesson. I would talk about how I think it went, and then we would have like a post-conference together. So we did, I think, like 8 of those throughout the internship. And then I also had a supervisor. That was another question. Did anyone from your college, the University of Florida, come to watch you? Yes. I also had supervisors who would come. Those lesson plans were like a little bit more formal because it was your supervisor and not your mentor teacher. And they aren't in your classroom as regularly, so you have to like communicate every little thing to them because they're not there. So they need like a full picture. So those, I think we did 4 again. One of them had to be a video. So I have a 45-minute video of me teaching on my phone. Maybe one day if I'm really brave and you guys want it, I'll post some like little tidbits of it. I did a video release form for the audio of the students' voices, and their faces aren't in it. That would be like really weird for me to do, but I guess if you guys like begged for it, it might do it. But anyways, I had to do a video once, submit the video. Other than that, there were things like DIBELS assessments. They wanted us to try doing a reading inventory, so we had to do that. There were like huge projects. One of them I had to document contact with every family and like go to some, I think it was like 3 or 4 community events with the families outside of school. So I went to a piano recital for one of my kids. I went to Taekwondo, and my student broke a board and she gave me the board and I have it. So that was really cool. Just like so much stuff. I don't know if that's common, but at UF at least, there was like so many things that we did in the classroom to kind of build on our coursework. So there was a lot that I turned in, but the observations, yes, there were like a certain number, and then just like a bunch of other like big projects. Daily basis, what do you do? Good question. So I got there, another one said like, what time did you get there? What time did you leave? So I got there when my mentor teacher got there. I think school started at 7:30. She normally got in around 7, between 7 and 7:10. Some days I would beat her there. Some days she would beat me there, but we parked in the same place. So generally I would like wait for her to walk up because I didn't have a key. So I got there at that time. What do? I would like set up for the first subject area of the day. I would lay everything out like on the table kind of in the front. I would have everything like in a pile, starting with like social studies on top, and then the next copies would be underneath it, so that I could just like pick up what we would need for the first part. Yeah, and then like when they got in, I was greeting them. I set up like the calming music that I wanted playing when they came in. I would circulate in the mornings to keep them on task, like give like praise, behavior management, offer compliments, Courtney would also check in with them and things, obviously. And then after that, like I would teach social studies or science. I would transition them to specials. I would pick them up from specials. I would do math, and then we would go to lunch, and I would line them up, and I would take them to lunch. Basically, like on the daily, by the end of it, you're the teacher. Like you do it all. So yeah, I would take them to lunch. She would be with me in all of those places. So, I mean, sometimes she wouldn't be. Sometimes like I would take them to specials and she would be like doing something, which was fine. But I think like daily basis in the beginning, let me give you a quick idea of that. I would come the first thing I took over was social studies and science, so I still would do that in the mornings. And then sometimes I would observe her doing math. Sometimes I would lead a small group in math. Yeah, it just kind of was different in the beginning than in the end. But yeah, that was kind of like, at the end, you're doing it all on a daily basis. Did I get a lot of ideas for my classroom from my student teaching? Abso-freaking-lutely. So many of the things that I'm planning to do in my classroom came from my student teaching experience, whether they be things that like my mentor teacher did that I loved and took away, or perhaps things that like she gave me the freedom to try and I tried them and I liked them, so I still essentially am like taking them from my student teaching. A lot of the things that I do in my teaching, just like the active style of learning that I like to have in my classroom, came from me like growing into that teaching style in my student teaching. So I picked up like a lot of like little tricks in my student teaching, just things like when I'm talking, like touch your nose if you agree, and like whispering to get their attention, and then just like so many things, callbacks, all kinds of things that I'll use in my classroom. I tried out, just like tested the waters in my student teaching, and they worked well. So absolutely, I'm taking a lot of it over into my own classroom. Someone else asked what my experience with Praxis test was like. I don't know what that is. I'm sure that is like a certification exam for teaching. I have only taken FTCE, which is the Florida equivalent of that. You have to do like an entry exam, of course, and then you have to do subject area test, and then you do like a professional exam to like be certified. I thought that they were fine. Generally, I felt that like our coursework at the university prepared us for all of those, so never did I feel like when I was studying that I had big gaps in my knowledge, which was great. So yeah, I thought that was fine. And then when I moved to Massachusetts, because I hadn't taught under my license yet in Florida, I had to take all the exams here. Their exams are called the MTELs, MTELs. Same thing, like an entry exam, all the subject tests, and then I had to do a Foundations of Reading one, which was interesting. But same thing, I felt very prepared by my coursework, so I didn't really have big knowledge gaps to fill in. So my experience was a positive one. I thought that they were great. I thought that the program that I paid so much money for did a great job in practice and prep for those tests. So yeah, that's my experience. Someone else says, was it awkward teaching with another teacher in the room? No, I don't think so. I'm also not like a shy person. Yeah, I don't think it was very awkward at all. I think if you feel uncomfortable because there's another adult in the room, then the students can very easily sense that lack of confidence or your discomfort, and they might kind of like test you a little bit more if they can tell that you're a little uncomfortable. So I would just say like fake it till you make it. You know, do it like it's your job because it will be soon. So yeah, be confident, just go for it. That would be my advice. I don't think it was very awkward at all. There were a few. Do you guys hear this thunder? It literally never rains here, and the one day I'm filming. Oh, so wild. Okay, anyways, there were a few questions that were worded with the verbiage of like, because it was someone else's room, or how do you do this in someone else's room? So I would caution you, to those of you who like have that mindset ahead of time, it's great that you're thinking that way because you don't want to step on the toes of your mentor teacher, and it is their room, you're right. But know that you are there to be an active participant. You are not there to sit and watch. You are not there to do clerical work. You are there to teach. So when you are teaching, those are your students in that moment. You know, they're the students who are listening to you teach, so don't think of it as someone else's room. But anyways, someone asked, what did you do for behavior management because it was someone else's room? Or what did you do for rules? How do you do that in someone else's class? So for behavior management, I tried at first, I just adopted all the systems that were in place. Granted, I came in mid-school year in the first part of my internship because of this fall spring schedule, confusing, but anyways, so they already had their behavior management systems in place and they already had their rules in place. So I just kind of adopted what my mentor teacher did, but also my mentor teacher's reputation was that of the super sweet military teacher. So she had, I mean, like a tight ship, but they loved her. I mean, it was amazing. Her behavior management, on point. It was great. So I had no issues using her systems. It wasn't like there was a lack or a need and I needed to do like reinvent the wheel or anything. Like, they responded very well to what was happening and I liked that and I went with that. So I just used hers. I did use some specialized behavior managements for like big behaviors. So some of the students who had some big behaviors that weren't being addressed fully with the systems in place, we would adopt like new things, but those were always supported by my mentor teacher. Once I did some sort of like conferencing with a child after every subject area, we would check in. How did it go? Did you meet these 3 like objectives? If yes, he would get like a check or a sticker in that area. And at the end of the day, if he had them all, or a certain number of them, we would have like a small reward. I think it was a Skittle, to be honest. But anyways, so if you feel like you need to implement something, obviously run it by your mentor teacher, but there was like room for that discussion in my internship at least. Best ways to keep a strong relationship with your mentor teacher. I love that question. I wish I had more advice for you. My mentor teacher and I were just very compatible, I guess you would say. We are similar in personality, in life experience, in a lot of ways. We're just similar and just compatible personality types, so that worked out well. But as far as maintaining a strong relationship after the fact, I would say communicate, ask questions, know that ideally, you know, that person is volunteering as a mentor because they want to truly help you in facilitating your first year in a classroom or even beyond that. And I know that my mentor teacher has been very open to any communication after the internship ended. We communicate regularly. I send her pictures of my classroom just like I post the videos online. I'm like, look how cute my library is. I think she saw it before you guys did. So we are very communicative even after the internship has ended about academic things, but also we shared bits of like our personal lives with one another, and we're able to celebrate each other in that regard. Truly just I think of it as like great practice for developing professional relationships with your coworkers. Think of the person as your coworker and just do your best. Someone asked about outfits. What does a typical outfit look like? What would you wear for an observation? I am wearing an outfit that I would typically wear. I left it on for this purpose, but I wore this to PD today. But anyways, normally I would wear, this was like okay at my school, I would wear like jeggings like this. These ones are white. Ta-da! Yeah, I would wear pants that were like a solid color, and then I had just like a bunch of tops just that I could throw on with pants, printed tops, solid color tops. I was very deliberate in presenting myself as a teacher because I was already younger looking. I look very young. I wanted to look more professional in my dress so that I was taken seriously, and I do feel like that has like a big role in it. I never wore a dress. I think maybe actually on my birthday at my internship I wore a dress because it was like really cute and I loved it. But if you're working with little ones, you're going to be down on the carpet a lot, moving around. Dresses aren't the best things. Wear shorts under them. But yeah, that's as much outfit advice as I have. I will be doing like outfits of the week, so you'll see more of my teacher wardrobe as time goes on. Next question. How much planning did you do, or was it mostly your teacher? So this is an interesting one because although I did step into planning by the end of it, like I planned all the subject areas by the last like few months or so, again, in my internship classroom, just like in the pre-internship classroom that I had mentioned, there was like cyclical planning. So because it was a Monday, I knew that we were going to be doing this, and because it was a Tuesday in reading, I knew that we would do this, and we did Daily 5 every day. So I was planning, and I would find the resources for like the Daily 5 centers, and I would preview the text for like from their Basel for the reading lesson. But it was almost basically like the biggest planning tasks were kind of like social studies and science and finding resources to teach those, because once you have a Basel for reading that you really follow, that kind of works in like a weekly cycle. So I took over planning, but that was like a little bit easier. Math planning was tough because you have to really adapt to the students' understanding. But yeah, by the end of it, I was doing all the planning. How much instruction did you actually do? I feel like I've answered that. Yeah, by the end of you just teach all day. Most difficult thing and your favorite thing. My most difficult thing. One of the most difficult parts of the student teaching for me was that our observations were seen as coaching cycles and not as like a supervisor comes in to tell you what you were doing wrong, so that everything you had to lead. So they would ask like, what would you like to work on next? What do you think went well? What do you think went poorly? And I felt like developing that reflective piece well enough in like my first experiences to be able to tell what I did wrong and what I needed to improve without someone telling me, I think that you should work on this area of your practice. That was tough for me because it was all new, so it was hard for me to know what I was doing well and what I was doing poorly. Yeah, I'm not so sure how I like feel about that whole coaching shenanigans, but anyways, that was very difficult for me. And then my favorite thing was teaching. I kind of think of it as like fun teaching because you don't have to do all the paperwork or all the other stuff that makes teaching kind of like crazy today in today's world. You just teach, and like how great is that to just plan everything and just teach everything, like, and not do all of the like other things like the paperwork and the like legal stuff and all the other things. Like you just are like the fun teacher, like you're just teaching. That's great. Like teachers now would love to just teach. So think of it as that, like, oh my gosh, it was so freaking fun. That was my favorite thing. What do you think will be different student teaching to teaching? Well, there goes the answer to that question. There's so much more. When you're the teacher, you are doing so much more. You are doing all the things that go on behind the scenes to, you know, establish a successful atmosphere and maintain that for your students. You just have to do so much more. You have to do all of the trainings, and you have to do all of the communication and just everything. So I know that my workload will be heavier for certain, and balancing that will be tough because I would love to just teach, but that's not how the way of the world works. Another question, there are only a few more, you guys, I promise. This might be 2 parts, we'll see. Did you collaborate with special education teachers? Yes and no. I think if I wanted to have access to like IEPs and CUME folders, I could definitely have those. The special education teachers were very busy. Obviously, they are very, very busy people too, because all of their students that they work with have very differentiated needs, and they are just on top of that all the time. So I never really had like full-on collaborative meetings with them, but I was in attendance at any meetings for students in our classroom, the class that I was like a student teacher in. If we had a meeting to discuss any of like changes to their IEPs or how it was going, you have regular meetings with the parents and every part of the learning community, and you guys know how it goes. I would go to those, so I was definitely privy to the information about the students in the room. That's kind of the extent of the collaboration I had. Someone said, what was in your bag for student teaching? I had just like a bunch of random stuff. I had my Erin Condren planner so I could copy all the plans that my mentor teacher had. I had a notebook and a folder. So I had this notebook that I had for notes from observations and stuff, anything I had to like jot down, and then in the folder I would place any handouts or like resources that I kept from that singular day, and when I got home I would file those in my big like file folder that I said that I had. So yeah, that's kind of that. And then I also had like perfume, like essential oil perfume to cheer me up in the day. I had a hairbrush, I had my lunch, some allergy medicine, feminine things. I don't know, just kind of like random things that you might need. How many lessons did you actually teach? A lot of them. I talked about that enough. What grade was it with? First grade. I already talked about that. How to prepare for student teaching. Okay, this is a good one. And then I have just like a couple more. Preparing for student teaching, I would say if your college doesn't do a good job of giving you more experiences one-on-one with students prior to you being expected to lead a full classroom, and then that's just kind of tough. If you haven't had experiences with students before your student teaching, if you're thinking, I'm gonna start my student teaching in like a year or in a semester and I don't have any experiences, volunteer at Big Brothers Big Sisters. Do some sort of experience where you are working with kids so that you can kind of understand better before you're up there expected to teach them. But that's if you have no experience at all, which I'm sure most of you aren't in that boat. Aside from that, preparing for student teaching, I would write down your goals. I wanted to try a classroom transformation. I did that. I wanted to do a lot of things in the second half that I felt didn't go very well in my first half of the year-long internship, but I checked in with myself and I wrote those things down. What do I wish would have gone differently? What do I wish I would have done? And I had a like meeting with my mentor teacher, and I said, you know, I kind of dropped the ball in these areas. I wish I would have done more of this. I should have done more of this. Can you hold me accountable to doing these things? So yeah, in preparation, I would have a conversation like that with your mentor teacher and tell them, you know, what you really are hoping to get out of that, and then say, can you please hold me accountable? If I I am not taking this seriously enough, if I don't seem to be fully invested in the planning, if anything, just say, you know, like, hold me to that. These are my words. I want to do this. Make sure that I do this, please. When you took full control, did I use my cooperating teacher strategies or did I use my own? I used a lot of my cooperating teacher strategies because their behavior management was like I said, flawless. Like, it was great. I did use some of my own strategies. Like, I would do things, and then sometimes she would want to teach things, and she would teach them, and we just said, you know, we're different teachers. And so if the kids were confused a little bit about, like, why didn't we sing today for calendar math? Well, that Miss B does that. I'm not going to put her name on the internet because it's not safe, but I don't do that. Miss B does that. So they knew that we were different teachers. We had different styles, different things. So there was lightning. Anyways, there's the thunder. They knew that we were different and that we would do different things. So I did use some of my own strategies, but I would just like weave them in there. If they needed instruction in how to do something, I would like teach it to them and then we would do it. So yeah, I used both. The last question, I saved this one for last because I'm just so stinking excited to answer this question. A few people said, I am a teacher, but I am getting a student teacher this year for the first time, or I'm getting a student teacher. What advice do you have for cooperating teachers? This is so freaking cool that you are even asking, because like, how nice of you to bring someone into your classroom to practice and learn with your students. Like, that's freaking incredible. So thank you for even asking. I'll just like say a couple of things. My favorite thing that my mentor teacher did was that she took me seriously from the gate. She was never dismissive of me. She always included me in any conversations. If someone popped in to talk about some needs with a student or their IEP, I was included. She just always made it seem as though we were like co-teachers, and I appreciated that. Even knowing that obviously it was her room, in the sense that like she was the one obligated and responsible for the students in that room. She did a very great job of making me feel as though I was a contributor, a valued contributor to the teaching side of it. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. I would use words like student teacher, or even just refer to the student teacher by like Miss so-and-so. I was Miss B. She always referred to me in that regard, and she always, when she framed me entering the classroom the first day, she said that we're gonna have another teacher in the room. She never even touched by the word intern. I think that would have made the students very dismissive of me and my lessons. So she did a great job of kind of setting that tone, and then the students followed suit. So that was great. Other advice, I would say maybe over-explain things or just be very open to questions. I already said that I asked a bunch of questions, but some things that seem like inherent or obvious to you, even things as simple as like acronyms. When you're first learning, there are a lot of acronyms. I'm sure you guys remember those days. So just being intentional about being open for questions or explaining things further when there's a confusion and not getting frustrated. I know it could probably be very, very annoying, especially when you have a million things to do, to stop and pause and answer questions. But yeah, those would be my biggest piece of advice. Be open to questions and be inclusive of the student teacher as much as possible. So anyways, guys, that is all of the questions. Anyways, if you made it this far, thank you for listening to me talk for so long. I am so happy and so excited for you to start your student teaching experience, and I hope that you have a fruitful and productive experience in your student teaching. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I am currently filming some weekly vlogs for my classroom. I'll be going to my classroom tomorrow morning before PD, so I'm excited. So anyways, stick around for some other videos, but as far as this one goes, subscribe if you want to see more, like the video if you want to help me out, comment if you have any questions, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye, friends.